Female cop lost and alone on Christmas. What a single dad did changed everything. The snow had been falling for hours by the time Officer Maya Reyes finally pulled into the parking lot of Murphy's Diner on the outskirts of downtown Boston. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? It was 11:47 p.m. on Christmas night, and the city was wrapped in a silence that felt less like peace and more like abandonment. Her patrol car idled for a moment before she shut off the engine and sat in the cold darkness, staring at the pale yellow light spilling through the frosted diner windows. She didn't want to go home. Home was a studio apartment with a second-hand couch and a blinking answering machine that had exactly 0 messages on it. She had worked a double shift, 16 hours of domestics, a fatal overdose 3 blocks from a church, and a teenage runaway who cried so hard she couldn't remember her own name. Maya's hands were still trembling slightly as she pushed open the patrol car door and stepped into the cold. The bell above the diner door chimed softly when she entered. The place was nearly empty. A tired-looking waitress refilled a coffee mug at the counter without looking up. Christmas music played faintly from somewhere, a tinny, distant version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. That felt almost cruel given the circumstances. Maya took a booth near the window, removed her hat, and set it on the seat beside her. She was still in uniform, badge catching the low light, dark circles carved under her eyes like something permanent. She was 29 years old and felt 50. She ordered coffee black. The waitress nodded and disappeared, and Maya leaned her head against the cold glass of the window and watched the snow fall. She didn't notice the man at first. He was sitting 2 booths away, facing her direction, a cup of coffee in front of him and a paper napkin. He'd been folding and unfolding for what looked like a long time. He was somewhere in his early 40s, with tired eyes and the kind of quiet sadness that didn't announce itself but filled a room slowly, the way cold air seeps under a door. He was wearing a faded flannel shirt. He had a small wrapped gift sitting on the table beside him, the ribbon slightly crushed, a name written on the tag in careful handwriting, Lily. Maya looked away. She didn't want to see other people's grief tonight. She had enough of her own. 3 years ago, she had been engaged to a man named Daniel, who had told her, gently and with genuine regret, that he couldn't love someone who loved the job more than she loved him. She hadn't fought it. She hadn't even cried right away. She had just nodded, packed a bag, and gone to work the next morning. She still thought about him sometimes, not with longing exactly, but with a hollow kind of recognition that some things, once broken, simply stay that way. She had grown comfortable with solitude. Or she had told herself she had. The man cleared his throat softly. "Sorry," he said, and Maya looked up. He was looking at her, not in an intrusive way, but the way people sometimes do when they recognize something familiar in a stranger. "I wasn't going to say anything," he continued, "but you look about as happy to be here as I am." His voice was low and unhurried. There was no humor in what he said, just the plain truth of it. Maya looked at him for a moment, then looked at the small gift on his table. "Whose is that?" she asked. He glanced down at it as though he'd forgotten it was there. "My daughter's. She's 8. She's at her mother's tonight. I was supposed to drop this off at 3 o'clock, but something came up at work, and then the roads were bad, and by the time I called..." He stopped. He turned the cup of coffee slowly in his hands. She cried on the phone. She didn't yell or anything. She just cried quietly, and I think that was worse. Maya said nothing for a moment. Outside, a single car moved slowly through the snow. "What's her name?" she finally asked. "Lily. That's a beautiful name." He nodded. She picked it herself, actually. We used to joke about that she basically renamed herself at age 4. Wouldn't answer to anything else. A small, broken smile crossed his face, then faded. "My name's Thomas," he said. "Maya." He nodded toward her badge. "Long day?" "The longest." Thomas was quiet for a moment, then said, "You want to hear something strange? I used to think that if I could just get through the hard years, the divorce, The custody thing, the job, that eventually I'd get to some easier place. Like there was a version of my life waiting for me on the other side of all of it. But it's been 3 years and I don't think that place exists. I think maybe you just carry it with you and learn to carry it better. Or you don't, and it breaks you. Maya wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. The warmth of it moved up through her palms and into her chest. She thought of the teenage runaway she had held. Tonight in a parking lot in the cold, the girl shaking and terrified and so completely alone, and she thought about how she had sat there on the cold asphalt in her uniform and held that girl's hand, and told her it was going to be okay, even though she didn't know that for certain. She had meant it. She had wanted it to be true. I think you're right, Maya said quietly. But I also think carrying it is underrated. Most people don't realize that's actually the hard part, not the breaking, but the carrying, the showing up. You showed up tonight with that gift even though it was too late. That matters. Thomas looked at her. Something in his face shifted, subtle but real, like a knot slowly loosening. You believe that? I see what happens to people who stop showing up, she said. I see it every day. The ones who keep coming back, who keep trying, even when they're late. Even when they get it wrong, they're the ones who eventually get through. The diner was quiet except for the faint music and the sound of snow against the windows. Neither of them spoke for a while, and it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens between people who have both been carrying something heavy and have, for a moment, set it down. Thomas looked at the gift on the table. I'm going to call her in the morning, he said. Early, before she's fully awake. She likes that sleepy conversations. He paused. I'll bring this over myself. Make her pancakes. She likes the ones with blueberries. Maya smiled. It surprised her. The warmth of it, how genuine it felt. She sounds wonderful. She is, Thomas said. She's the best thing I ever did. He looked up. What about you? You have people? Maya thought about it honestly. Not right now, she said. But I think I stopped looking for a while. Maybe I'll start again. Thomas raised his coffee cup slightly, a small toast. Maya lifted hers. The cups touched with a quiet clink. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and steady and patient, covering the city in white. The way grace sometimes comes, quietly, without announcement. In the middle of the night, when no one is watching, making everything look, at least for a moment, like it might be okay. When Maya finally walked back to her patrol car an hour later, the cold hit her the same as before, but something was different. She felt it in her shoulders, a lightness, small but real. She sat in the car and looked up at the snow-filled sky for a long moment. Before starting the engine, she would go home. She would sleep. In the morning she would call her mother, who she hadn't spoken to in 4 months, for reasons that now seemed smaller than they had before. She would start there. She would start with one small thing, and somewhere across the sleeping city, Thomas sat at his kitchen table with his daughter's gift in front of him and dialed a number. He hadn't called in months, his own mother's number, and when she picked up on the second ring, her voice full of surprise and something close to joy, he closed his eyes and said simply, "Hi, Mom, Merry Christmas." And it was. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Kindness True Stories, where we bring you real and heartfelt stories about human connection, compassion, and the little moments that change everything. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep sharing these stories with the world. Thank you for watching and for being part of our kindness community.